The title of this video is, What is a Jezebel Spirit? So let's get right into this. When Christ was here, he cast out a lot of spirits. He healed a lot of people, some of which was documented, some of it's not documented. We're told that he did so many works and wonders that not all of it was written down. Not all of it could be written down. But we can be certain that whatever God made sure was written down is what we needed to know. There is only one instance in Scripture where God actually names the spirit or spirits that are in a person. And you remember the story of Legion when he asks, "What is your name?" And the spirit says, "Legion, for we are many." He didn't ask the name because he needed to know the name in order to cast it out. He never referred in any other instance in Scripture to the name of a spirit. That was done for our sake in order to show us that there can be many spirits. Not done in order that we should become hung up or add to the scroll or create some sort of deliverance ministry where we are claiming that people need to have some sort of expertise on spirits or even name spirits. So we're going to look at the context of Jezebel in Scripture. It's going to be pretty short. In 1 Kings and in 2 Kings, Jezebel is used to describe the literal woman Jezebel, the wife of Ahab. There is only one other time that Jezebel is mentioned and never says that Jezebel is a spirit. Here's what it says, Revelation 2:20. "I have this against you. You tolerate that woman Jezebel who calls herself a prophet. By her teaching, she misleads my servants into sexual immorality and the eating of food sacrificed to idols." God is drawing an analogy between the literal woman Jezebel and a false prophet that is infecting the minds of believers, causing them to eat, to ingest doctrine that is sacrificed to idols. That's the only analogy that God is drawing in Scripture regarding Jezebel. But what I hear being used is I hear usually men talking about this so-called spirit named Jezebel, and I usually hear them using it within the context of demonizing their exes, trying to imply that their ex has this Jezebel spirit. A little like what is done in psychology when people just start diagnosing their exes as having borderline personality disorder or narcissism. I want you to understand that is such an inappropriate use of Scripture. It is an inappropriate adding to the scroll, and it is so totally false. It is not speaking correctly on the word. I don't know where this destructive teaching comes from, but it really doesn't matter. The problem is that those who are repeating it do not know the word. They are not reading the word. They are listening to something else. I don't know what that something else is, the delusions of their mind, some other heretical teaching, but it does not come from the Scripture, and we need to stop saying that and using that. So that took less than 4 minutes to explain. The last thing that I want to tell you that is extremely important is if you are going around and you are saying that your exes have a Jezebel spirit, or your exes have borderline personality disorder or narcissistic personality disorder, and this is something that is continuing to happen in relationships, or even if it happened once, but it's most concerning if it keeps happening in your relationships, you need to take a look at you. You were attracted to someone who had that in them. Whatever it is that you are identifying, you were attracted to that person at one time. Not being attracted to them anymore or having discord with them doesn't suddenly make you okay. So if this is something that you're doing and it is something that you believe, we can observe things and we can observe that people have certain characterological traits. I am not disputing that there are certain characterological traits that come out as a result of the spirit that is occupying a person, but let's speak correctly about that. It is a spirit that's occupying a person. The spirit's name is Satan, not Jezebel. But that doesn't mean that you go around saying that and dismissing a person because they have a spirit of Satan. If you were in a relationship with them, there is something in you that was attracted to that. And that is your work to do. That is your work to address. And there is something that needs to be healed inside of you if you continue to attract people like this. If this is your pattern, own your pattern. Don't justify yourself by diagnosing and dismissing other people. That is a plank spec issue. Now look, I am talking about people who are engaged in a pattern of being in relationships with people like that, or like what people are usually describing. And the reason I'm mentioning that is because most often this is what I hear from people, is that they are continually diagnosing a spirit or a disorder in their exes. So usually it's a pattern in their relationships. It's a pattern for them to defer blame to somebody else. But I do want you to understand that if you've even been in one relationship like this with a person and you stayed in that relationship for a given amount of time, and you're referring to yourself as having been narcissistically abused, or you're still traumatized by that relationship, you need to heal from that. You need to take a look at why it was that you ended up in that relationship to begin with. And most of the time, I will tell you, in my work with people who claim to have been narcissistically abused, when we start to scale things back, the sin that led to that was idolatry. It was first idolatry of self because that person was placing them on a pedestal. And then the role switched. They began to idolize the other person. So you have to understand that you get handed over to certain things when you spurn God, when you set up yourself or others as idols. So it's not the person who dragged you through that. It was the spirit of Satan that you were handed over because of your choice, not because of them, because of your choice. Because if you hadn't done that to begin with, if you had been in the right standing with God, you wouldn't have gone through it. God would have let you know, this is not of me. But usually what happens is people become so drunk on that they ignore everything that God is telling them. They ignore the warning signs, they ignore the convictions, they ignore the ministry, and they turn because it's easier for man to give them the validation and the good feelings that they actually have to work for in personal accountability with God. So God says, okay, you want that instead of me? You want to replace me? All right, I'll hand you over to that. That's what you got beat up by. Whose choice was that? So please, stop diagnosing your exes. Stop calling people by a spirit that God has not. He has not said these things. He has not referred to a Jezebel spirit in the word whatsoever. If you want to know the truth, you got to go to the word. Please stop listening to what man has to say about these deliverance ministries. It's not true. And quite frankly, it causes you to not be in the right standing because God does want you to address the reasons why you're doing this. So if you keep referring to other people as being the source of your problem, you are never going to heal and you are never going to pick up the responsibility, the personal accountability, and the ministry that God is calling you to address, to receive from his spirit regarding your sin. If you want to know how to heal from that, Heart Known series would be the book for you to get. Thank you so much for listening. If you know someone who is using this language or who is deceived, please consider sharing this with them so that they can be edified and so that they can truly heal from these destructive patterns in their life. But remember, you got to know the truth. You have to know the truth about your design in order to heal. You have to know the truth about what's happening, why it is that you keep being attracted to something like this. in order to heal. Thanks again for listening. God bless you, and I'll see you in the next video.